Did you know that Toblerone chocolate depicts this very peak? Let's try to match it. Just like that. Like that. Welcome travelers from around the world. Today we're off in a search of the best views in Switzerland. And as a backdrop, we've chosen one of the country's most iconic mountains, the incredible Matterhorn, which has become a real magnet for travelers from all over the world. And to get to know it better, we're off to a fabulous place. Join us! One of the most unusual things about Switzerland is this. These people in their cars are waiting in line for the next train. We're going to ride it a few stops too, and then head towards Zermatt. To tell you the truth, it's a very unusual way to get around. We're in Zermatt, at the intersection of Bahnhofstrasse, a street that every city in the country has, and Kirchstrasse, next to this lovely church. Over there you can see the mountains. Zermatt is one of the most famous alpine resorts in the world, and it's certainly one of the most interesting and atmospheric places in Switzerland, so let's get to know it better. Zermatt is a small town located in the canton of Valais, 1,600 meters above sea level, at the foot of the majestic Matterhorn, or Monte Cervino in Italian. With its friendly locals and cheerful tourists, this place has a wonderful feeling to it. Its main street, Bahnhofstrasse, is a pleasure for the eyes. Cobblestone roads, sloping roofs, and cafes that draw you in with their aromas at every corner. Right in the heart of the city, you can find the famous Marmot Mountain. It was built in the early 20th century, and its figures have become gilded over time from being touched by tourists, as it's a popular spot for taking photos in Zermatt. Here in the main street, there is a memorial plaque to Edward Whymper, who was the first to reach the Matterhorn summit. That expedition took place in 1865, and it wasn't an easy one, as 4 people lost their lives. He was a great mountaineer as well as a traveler, and on a side note for our Ecuadorian friends, he was also the first to reach the summit of Chimborazo. You don't expect to be able to get around in your car in an enchanted valley, do you? Only local electric cars are allowed in the entire municipality of Zermatt, which means that if you come with your car, you have to leave it at the closest city in Tash, 7 kilometers away from Zermatt, and come here by taxi or train. The most striking thing about Zermatt is these electric cars. They're the only way to get around the city besides walking. Now we're gonna meet a man who has lived here for a long time and who works as a driver of one of these wonderful cars, and he'll tell us a little bit about them. Hello, how are you? Good, and you? Great, thank you. How long have you been driving these electric cars? 14 years. 14 years? And what do you like about Zermatt? Everything. The fresh air, the lifestyle, the people. The first time I visited Zermatt was when I was very young, and even back then, these electric cars were already here, and it felt like the world of the future. All electric, and they're still here. Yeah, there are only electric cars here. And what is it like to drive here? After all, there are a lot of people here. The streets are almost pedestrian. Yes, you always have to be alert. Most electric cars belong to hotels, don't they? Yes, that's right. Yes, I've seen them go to the train stations, pick people up and take them to the hotel. Well, thank you very much for your time. Muito obrigado. You're welcome. All the best. These cars haven't changed at all. There are 2 companies in the suburbs of Zermatt that make them, and they're just as I remember them from my childhood. The first such electric cars were produced in 1977 and are still in use today. They are practically hand-assembled and therefore are very durable, but they don't come cheap. One such electric car cost about 80,000 euros. The Matterhorn mountain is a legendary destination in the Alps. Its unusual shape with 4 faces pointing towards each of the cardinal directions and its reputation as a dangerous mountain have attracted people for years. Whymper's first ascent marked a turning point in the history of mountaineering. The arrival of the railroad in the middle of the 19th century, as well as the construction of rack railways and lifts in the early 20th century, brought a lot of mountain climbers, skiers, and tourists to Zermatt. However, the historical city center has always remained intact. If you find yourself, be sure to visit Hinterdorf, the oldest part of Zermatt, and see its historical buildings. It's very easy to get to. If you start going uphill, you're bound to come across it at some point. Some of the buildings you see here date back to the 16th century or 17th century, and you can see old barns and warehouses and things like that here. They've been pretty well restored. Look at this unusual structure. This is a very interesting part of Zermatt. Another interesting thing to see in Hinterdorf is this fountain dedicated to Ulrich Inderbinnen, who was a guide and a famous character in Zermatt and the Matterhorn history. He is said to have climbed it 360 times. Incredibly, Ulrich lived to 104 years and died in 2004. He continued to work as a guide until he was 94, and he climbed the mountain for the last time at the age of 90. So he is a man who broke records, and he is remembered here as one of the people who love these mountains the most, and as the man who helped many hikers and climbers to complete their routes unhindered. All in all, he's quite a significant character in the history of this place. In the evening we arrived. The sky was pretty overcast, so we decided to get to know Zermatt first, and then find out why the Matterhorn attracts so many people the next day. It's another day in Zermatt, and I have to admit that I didn't get much sleep last night because of this. It's all very picturesque here. All these bell towers with mountains in the background. Wonderful. But in Switzerland, they are crazy about ringing the church bells. And in some villages, they start ringing at 7 a.m. for 6 minutes. In other places, they may ring for 15 minutes. And in fact, it has caused a lot of controversy in recent years. In some areas, people have even asked to stop the practice because not everybody wants to hear the 5-minute ringing at 6 or 7 a.m. In the end, the love for tradition, clocks, time, and bells always win out, but it's hard to sleep. Even many guidebooks warn, check in advance if your hotel is near the bell tower. As you can imagine, we didn't pay attention to these details, but either way, it's something that might surprise or upset you in the morning. Anyway, such is the local tradition. There is a debate in Zermatt about which place has the best view of Matterhorn. So on our first morning, we chose 3 of the most popular viewpoints and went to explore them. We started with the closest one, Suniga, which we reached in 5 minutes via the oldest Swiss funicular built in a tunnel. Skiing here is quite expensive. If you come here with skis, a day of skiing will cost you about 90 euros, and you can ski here all day on all slopes up to the border with Italy, and even cross it. However, if you're not a skier and you just want to see the views, then the cost of just one ride on one of these trains or cable cars will cost you more or less the same. So if you come here and you don't want to spend that much money to see each of the lookouts, today will help you save money and visit them for you so that you can decide which one you like best. The Glacier Paradise is based at 2,288 meters above sea level and has fantastic views, restaurants, rest, and hiking areas. And this is the first lookout point. What do you think of this view? Let's do an experiment. This is of course a silly thing which many people do here. Did you know that Toblerone chocolate depicts this very peak? Let's try to match it. Just like that. Like that. By the way, this is not the only commercial use of this image. This drawing, designed by Emil Cardino in 1903, is considered to be one of the world's first tourist posters, and its original was sold at auction for tens of thousands of dollars. After Suniga, we took a gondola to Blåherd and then a luxurious cable car to Rothorn, from where we saw one of the most incredible sceneries of the trip. Of course, it's not just the Matterhorn that's beautiful here. It's definitely the most iconic peak, but in this incredible valley you can see many others. If you go to Italy, you will be able to see even higher peaks there. but the Matterhorn stands out because of its shape. So far, this view of the Matterhorn is winning because it's truly spectacular and it's also very quiet here. And it's one of the easiest places to get from Zermatt. We're at an altitude of 3,103 meters and it's just so incredibly beautiful here. Now we're gonna take a train, this time a real train, and we'll be heading to Gornergrat. Well, now I have to confess something to you, because on our channel we always tell the truth. The thing is that we've actually bought a ski pass for skiing, which, as I told you before, comes out much cheaper, and no one has said anything so far. The Portuguese who work here are very friendly to see as much as possible. We were planning to take 3 routes, and since we've not been asked to pay for each lift separately so far, we're gonna stick to the plan. From Zermatt, we've already gone up to Suniga, and then to the Rothorn, and now we're back in Zermatt, taking the train and going up to Gornergrat. I think we'll have to get off the train at some point and continue on a chairlift. Gornergrat is at about the same altitude as the Rothorn, but it has a different view of the Matterhorn, which we're gonna see. What a beautiful view! I think we're one of the few people on this train who don't ski, although this gentleman here also doesn't have skis. Crossing rivers, bridges and tunnels on the way to the top is quite amazing. The railway station is located at an altitude of 3,089 meters, making the Gornergrat Railroad the second highest railroad in Europe after the Jungfrau. It's hard to believe that this line was opened in 1898. Well, we've just got off the train and we're already at Gornergrat at almost 3,100 meters above sea level. By the way, besides the fact that this train is the highest running train in Switzerland, this station is the highest open-air railway station in Europe. Let's walk over to the fence and look out over the valley. Normally, you can see about 29 peaks from here, some of them 4,000 meters high, but today it's very cloudy and snowing, so you can't see anything at all. I suspect Gornergrat won't win the contest for the best views after all. Now I'm going to do the touristy thing. Ladies and gentlemen, here's the result. My goodness, look how beautiful the station is. So small with a turret like a castle and surrounded by this stunning valley. It's too bad we can't admire these views properly. Now we're gonna take a look at the impressive building over there. And here we have the world's biggest chocolate Matterhorn, made of 4,468 grams of chocolate. I think they made a life-size one on a 1-to-1 scale. I'd eat it in a couple of months. The chocolate whetted our appetite, so we decided to head back to Zermatt and look for some food, souvenirs, and interesting places. We're in a hardware store, which is a souvenir shop at the same time. And one of the most typical things here in Switzerland is these Swiss Army knives. I have one of these at home somewhere, but I'd like to buy another one, only because I'm spoiled for choice with such a huge selection. It's funny how each one has its own name, depending on its components. For example, waiter has a corkscrew, a can opener, and a knife. All of them have a knife and other things. This one is suitable for camping. It has absolutely everything, and it's very expensive, 229 francs. This one is for someone who's into IT, called CyberTool, for 119 francs. If you want something simpler, there's the Ambassador model, which has a file, scissors, and a knife. To tell you the truth, they are really cool, and even though I already have one at home, I'm gonna buy myself another one.
So if may I ask you, what's the typical thing the people write there in the knives?
The names.
There's names.
The names. Yes, and on nicknames.
So what's special about these kind of tools?
You can take it everywhere with you and use it everywhere. Just in the plane, you have to put it in a check-in luggage in case. And it looks like this.
Lovely. Thank you.
One of the most famous places in Zermatt is the Mountaineers Cemetery. Yes, I know that many people don't really like cemeteries because they find them too gloomy. However, this one is very unusual. We are in the courtyard of St. Marie's Catholic Church on the main street of Zermatt, and there's still a little cemetery where a lot of people who lost their lives in this valley rest, such as guides, climbers, pioneers, and skiers. Since the late 19th century, more than 500 have died in these mountains, and this little cemetery, which is open 24/7, is a small tribute to all of them. So even though visiting the cemetery may seem a little gloomy at first glance, in fact, if you view it as a memorial and tribute to all the fallen in these mountains, this cemetery is worth a visit. You can come here just for a couple of minutes and walk along the graves, where you can often find attributes associated with mountaineering, and I certainly recommend you see it, even if initially it may not seem so interesting. Look! What a beautiful staircase and what a wonderful place! We've started a new day and it's incredibly sunny, so we're gonna visit Matterhorn Glacier Paradise. We will see the glacier itself, the ice sculptures inside it, and the highest viewpoint in this whole region, which stands at 4,000 meters above sea level. Let's go! Matterhorn Glacier Paradise is the highest cable car station in Europe. It's located on a glacier, and you can reach it by taking first the train and then several cable cars. Although it will cost you a pretty penny, it's definitely worth a visit. The cheapest way to do this is to combine a trip to the glacier with a climb up Gornergrat in the same day. Using the peak-to-peak ski pass, it costs about 150 euros depending on the season and can be purchased either at the Zermatt tourist office or on the Matterhorn Paradise website. I've got out for a few minutes at one of the intermediate stations, Truckner Steg, because I want to show you this view. So beautiful. It reminds me of when I went to Egypt as a kid and looked out the car window and suddenly I saw a huge mountain that took up all the space, and it was the Great Pyramid of Giza. Although part of this building blocks the view, I think this observation deck can be added to our best view ranking.
Driving further than 100
These gondolas are the highest in the Alps, reaching 3,800 something meters. And this is the highest station in Europe. Well, I mean the highest gondola station. We saw the highest train station yesterday, and actually turned out to be the second or third highest. The station is in a cave. There's a cinema that shows movies about this place, but we want to go up to the observation deck and also visit the Ice Palace, which I'm sure is a bit touristy, but we still like to take a look. The Glacier Paradise stands on the top of the Klein Matterhorn, the little brother of the legendary mountain. Here you'll find a movie theater, a restaurant, one of the largest ice caves in the world, and most importantly, an observation deck located at 3,883 meters, which offers incredible views. We're at almost 4,000 meters. And I must confess that all the climbing up and down has made me a little dizzy. But thank goodness we're on time, because the lift closes at 3:15. Anyways, it starts to get dark here at 4 p.m.
Wow.
The views are simply spectacular. From this viewpoint, you can see 38 mountains in Italy, France, and Switzerland, which are around 4,000 meters high, and of course, the Matterhorn itself, but from a completely different perspective. And on clear day, you can even see the Mediterranean Sea. I haven't brought a padlock with me to leave it here, but it's not a good idea to go 3,000 meters back down to get one now. And now it might look like I'm going down to a bunker, but in fact I'm going to the Ice Palace. And I have about 8 minutes or so as it closes at 3:15. I hope I have time to at least see something. We are inside the glacier, surrounded by ice sculptures. Of course, such exhibitions are quite common in the Nordic countries, but this one is quite unusual because it's inside the glacier. And this makes it quite special. As you're not just out in the open air, you can feel you're at the heart of a real glacier. For many European mountaineers, this is where the route to their first 4,000 meter peak begins. After undergoing such baptism in this incomparable setting, these views remain forever in their hearts. The immensity of this landscape requires hours to assimilate. Too bad it's so cold here. So there we have it. Now we understand why this place is so appealing. Unfortunately, it's time for us to leave Zermatt, pick up our car, and head for central Switzerland, where we're going to visit Interlaken and another legendary mountain, the Jungfrau. A video about it all will be out next week. And if you've enjoyed watching this one, we would really appreciate it if you could give it a like. And if you're new here and don't want to miss our next trip, click on the bell and subscribe to our channel. Thank you so much and see you soon, world travelers.